the files.
Hello and welcome. My name is Tucker Johnson, and I am your host today as we experience NIMSY Live, where we talk about the latest and greatest in translation, localization, internationalization, culturalization, and all that fun stuff global companies need to delight their international customers, or at least to not piss them off too much. On this program, we invite guests who like to have fun and have some value to add for our audience of globalization professionals. I'm always eager to provide a platform to those with a good story or a good data set. So let us know if there are any topics you'd like covered or guests we should reach out to for future episodes. And if you haven't already done so, make sure that you're hitting that subscribe, follow button on your platform of choice. We're coming to you live today on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, X, and probably a few other places, on YouTube, of course, where all of our episodes, we have over 100 episodes now, they're all archived over there on the NIMSY Insights YouTube page. Getting right into it today, because we have quite a few guests, so I'm going to skip all of the standard plugs and promotional stuff I make you guys sit through. Today's topic, OpenAI. OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT, and they have recently released some updates. Today, we are hosting a conversation about what that means for localization professionals. Today's discussion will be driven by my colleague, Renato Beninatto, my co-founder of NIMSY and co-author of the General Theory of the Translation Company. Renato is a long-time industry analyst who speaks and consults around the world. We also have some other interesting guests, and I'll just get right into it and start making some introductions here. Konstantin Dranch is the founder of Custom MT. He is a longtime industry researcher and analyst with a passion for innovation and guiding clients through the complex tech landscape. Marina Pantcheva is a returning guest to the show. She's a language specialist and polyglot with her PhD in theoretical linguistics. We've had her on the show before, and she's always a wealth of fascinating information about complex language frameworks. Laszlo, my friend Laszlo, is an NIMSY researcher and consultant who has been monitoring and in the evolving AI landscape closely. He publishes research on the effects of AI on the language industry and hosts workshops and informational sessions to keep NIMSY's clients up to speed on the latest advancements in this rapidly changing field. And I think that's it. I think we've gotten through all the guests. So as promised, I'm going to take a back seat today and turn it over to my co-founder, Renato Beninatto, to drive this conversation. Renato, what are we talking about today?
Thank you, Tucker. You already said what we're going to talk about. So what we're going to talk about is this new developments in AI. OpenAI launched ChatGPT a year ago, in the month of November of last year, and it was this huge impact and revolution in the industry. Everybody got super excited. Many people got super scared, and we have gone through waves of reactions and emotions regarding the application of OpenAI in the language industry. Several attempts have been made to implement this in our workflows in every organization, on the buyer side and on the seller side. But there is a lot of things that we don't know really what is going on and what is going to happen. Last week, OpenAI had their dev day with developers. Each one of them got $500 in credits if you watched the presentation. Super exciting. They probably spent a lot more money than that just to be at that room with the launch of all the new features of ChatGPT 4 Turbo, and they made some other announcements. Almost immediately, our friend Kostya wrote a post on LinkedIn with his first take on what was going on, what were the changes that were announced, and what were the possible impacts into our workflows and our lives after this change happened. So I immediately thought, why not get together and have a conversation about this? It's been a week since the launch. We have had some chance to ingest the new features and try some of it. And the idea of today is to have a little conversation about, is it completely revolutionary, and is it going to change our lives, or isn't it? So I would like to start to ask by asking Kostya, what were these changes? What, in your opinion, is the impact, and what should we be looking at more specifically when it comes to the new features of ChatGPT? Oh, and we can go back and also see if there was any key impact that you would discuss before the launch of these new features of GPT-4 Turbo. Kostya.
Thank you, Renato. Well, we are at the stage where the hype should have been dying down. And if you look at Google Trends, what's the number of search requests or traffic to OpenAI website, you can see that over the summer it started to go down slightly. So people got tired of hearing AI everywhere. And at the end of the year, of course, is the time when all the announcements are coming to reignite the enthusiasm to make an impact in the business season. And last week's announcements were quite important. So I will go through them quickly without going into too much detail and analysis. The first one, as you mentioned, is the GPT-4 Turbo, which is a less expensive version of the latest model. I suspect it's like a slightly smaller model, so it doesn't cost as much money to run with a larger context window. Your favorite large language model before was Claude 2, right? Which is has a much bigger context window, 100,000 tokens per request. And that was a differentiating feature of Claude. And suddenly GPT-4 comes out with 128 token window. So bam, the competitive advantage is kind of obliterated by that one. All right, so it can remember more in one request. You can now put in a large book through it and run the whole book. It will go through all the content in one query. Okay, it's 3 times cheaper, so you can use it more. But so what? I think the more important announcement was that OpenAI launched the vision model, GPT-4 vision preview, and now the model can see. So for the first time in forever, Disney let it sing and see, and it's actually quite good. So you can tell the model in your own language, in your own words, to look at something, understand what it is, and point out some of the details that it's saying. So it can look at a document, it can look at an image, it can look at a screenshot, it can look at a video and describe what it's saying. And that capability is rather new. We are already used to working with text, but now we can tell it, computer, have a look at this picture, tell me what you see. And immediately that jumped to me as something which will have an impact in localization, because it can look at screenshots, it can do localization QA on those screenshots, some of the arcane stuff that's only localization geeks know, but it's always a big problem, and there's no automated solution. And for the first time, anyone can write, look at my screenshot and tell me what you see. And that already works. So immediately after, I asked our developer to make a small script. And if Tucker, if you'd like, you can maybe show that somewhere during our meeting today. You can upload the Nimdzi screenshot, the Nimdzi live page into that tool. And behind that tool is a small prompt. Detect localization issues and tell me what they are. And
we're talking about this right here, Kostya?
Yes, take this page. I have sent you.
Tell us all of the issues with our website, please. I love it. And, come on our show and tell us what's wrong.
Try to run it if it works, because it's a simple wrapper around this. We can come back to that screen and have a look.
Oh, you want me to run? You want me to run a script on this?
You have a script in the Meet that we're sitting to open a small tool which we built specifically to test the screenshot.
Okay, we're going to pretend I ran the script because I don't trust running a script at the same time as running like a bajillion gigabytes worth of RAM live streaming. But do you want me to go to the next picture?
No, it's just screenshots to test. So if you'd like, open the web page in the Meet.
All right, I'm going off
there.
stream, and I'll play around with this. Keep talking, guys.
Yeah, that would be
yeah. So the point is that you made a very interesting exercise, which was to get GPT to look at your screen on a registration screen on your website.
And it can see, right? It can see what is the problem, and it can describe the problem better than somebody who is not versed in localization can do. So not only the model can see, it can actually work with the information it sees in a very similar way to a human. Mm-hmm. And that is quite big. We never had that kind of capacity at the fingertips, and people can now easily build something on top of that. And it will have an effect probably both in testing if it works today.
All right, Tucker. I'm dragging the image where it says drag image.
Yeah, and it can have an effect in audio description, right? So this audio description where they narrate videos for blind people, it can already do that almost right out of the box. And audio description is a growing market where 1 minute of audio description costs $27, and it's driven by regulations that inclusion
legislation. Yes.
All right, so we got a result here. As an AI, I cannot perform live testing on interfaces, but I can point out potential issues that might be identified during localization testing based upon the image provided. Here's a numbered list of potential issues with the layout that could come up during localization. 1, text overflow, and I'm not going to read all of the details. 2, fixed date and time format. Interesting. I recognize that. 3, font support. 4, directionality. Some languages are read right to left. 5, color and contrast. The use of colors and contrast should be considered. Some cultures have different meanings. 6, cultural considerations. Imagery, icons, and colors may have cultural connotations and might need to be adapted for different regions. 7, alignment and spacing. Depending upon language, alignment and spacing around text between UI elements may need adjusting to ensure visually appealing and functional layout. 8, responsive design. The website's design must remain functional and visibly coherent. Very interesting. So it got all of that just from uploading a screenshot from our website.
But none of that seemed very specific to the screenshot itself.
Well, some of it was because
a specific error to the screenshot, it will point out this error, and the prompt behind this is basically 1 or 2 lines. It's not very detailed yet. It's just a demonstration that vision works.
Yeah,
and it did recognize that there was a date in there. For example, it says Thursday, November 16th at 10 o'clock PST. So it did recognize that. Very interesting.
Yeah, and this is quite impressive because I've seen some of the applications of this. It's like it's narrating football game, right?
Oh, but that's also
a video, and it does the like a football narrator, right? It can describe, it can analyze images, and this is very good. But what is the impact of this in the localization industry? Maybe Marina can tell us.
Yeah, Marina, go ahead. I've been talking too much already.
In this particular case, with this tool that Kostya created, right, it's obvious because this is linguistic testing that you get basically for free in runtime, okay? Very quick, very cheap, and pretty reliable. So that's an immediate impact. We can test web pages without using a lot of resources and, typically paid per screenshot or per hour. But that's just one case, right? That's just like one of the, to me, very concrete types of impact that this release has. In my personal opinion, the major impact of the DevDiv Day at OpenAI is that suddenly this technology, GPTs, became much more easily accessible. Suddenly, everybody can create a GPT. for example, a custom GPT. You don't need to be a coder. Whereas before, one needed some sort of a tech background or like some coding knowledge to create such a wrapper. Now you can just go in and create a GPT yourself, which to me brings another issue, which I believe we will have to address in the industry. And that is, given that now this technology is so ubiquitous, everybody can use it, and the entry level is so low, how do we regulate it? Just to give you an example, soon after the dev div, there were lots and lots of people who tried out to create their own custom GPT for quality evaluation. You know, AI LQA. This is one of the most reasonable applications of AI. So everybody tried to create their own AI LQA tool, you know, GPT, whatever. Now, within a very short time, we will have every service provider, every localization service provider having their own AI LQA solutions. How do we make sure that they are comparable, right? When we are running quality evaluation, for example, we always try to regulate it so that the quality evaluation done by one supplier, say on content translated by a different supplier, you know, wouldn't be very much different if a third supplier comes in and evaluates the quality. We need to measure everything by the same measure. That's why we have DQF and QM. Now, suppose that every supplier have their own prompts for running AI LQA. How do we make sure that those prompts are somehow similar, that they are focusing on the right thing, that they're using similar technologies? Let's say all of them are using as reference style guides and term bases and so on. So I feel that very soon we will be solving that problem of making sure that AI technologies that are implemented in our processes are somehow regulated and they're comparable. So that when I run AI LQA on content translated by, let's say, my translators, and then the client sends this same content to a third-party reviewer and wants to have it checked for quality as well. The third-party reviewer running their own AI LQA is measuring the translation quality by the same measure, which in this particular case means with a similar prompt.
Laszlo, why is this important? I kind of think that LQA is the kind of service that might disappear completely from the process as a human manual LQA kind of thing, right? I don't know. What do you think?
I think that, well, to be honest with you, OpenAI's latest announcements, they add a lot of things publicly. You can call it like OpenAI's Appleifying or iPhoneification, something you can put that name around it if you want to. I mean, it's a single platform where you can do a whole bunch of things. There are a lot of apps. There's essentially one model with various versions for any single use case, whether it be DALL-E or the GPTs or Whisper or the new text-to-speech engine that they developed, which, by the way, speaks Hungarian with a very heavy American accent. And not very heavy, but very noticeable. Which again goes back to the fact that many of these tools are very English biased. We're looking forward to developments of, let's make it like kind of language inclusive and language neutral. Some of these tools, at least. But in reality, what we're looking at is what Kostya and Marina, you were also discussing, is these are kind of use cases, or rather tasks in the language industry, in the localization industry, that we're trying to automate to a certain degree. And while we have had automations developed and deployed on various tasks before, now, all these large language models and with the vision capability, other multimodalities, they may bring about new tasks that could be automated to a certain degree. But they do not fundamentally change the way we actually work. So great, let's work on LQA, let's work on OCR, question answering, and do localization or linguistic testing on screenshots or even on videos. We can do that if you really want to with the GPT model and with all the function calling and everything else with it. That doesn't necessarily fundamentally change the way we work. Or rather, it doesn't change fundamentally the workflow, the way the work that is being done. So curiously enough, actually, the language industry is one of those places where it's less revolutionary than you would have thought. Ultimately, these are large language models. You would have expected they're going to bring something amazingly different to the language industry, and so far they haven't. That's not to say that GPT-5, whenever OpenAI releases that, will not do something amazingly different again. What we're seeing today, still in my head at least, is quite incremental. to the way the language industry currently delivers work or will be delivering work for the foreseeable future.
Kostya,
May slightly disagree here. I don't know what exactly you mean by saying it doesn't change the way we fundamentally work, and who exactly do you mean by we, right? Because for linguists, it changes a lot. And that is a trend that simply continues, right? So when you think about the work provided, the nature of the work of a translator 20 years ago or 30 years ago, right? Very creative, translating
40
from
years
scratch.
ago in my case, Marina, 40.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. But what do you have there? You have a blank sheet, right? Totally blank sheet. And you need to fill it in with translated words. Then comes TM, okay? Your sheet is not blank anymore. You are getting translation memory hits. Then comes MT, and you are getting machine translation, which you need to post-edit. Currently, most translators are actually post-editors, barring, some creative marketing translations and transcreation, right? These are post-editors. Post-editors, in many cases, they do not think like the translators 30 years ago. They do not employ the same mechanism of work as you do when you have the blank sheet that you need to fill up with words. And I am seeing this changing right now because linguists right now, the way we have started retraining them, they will be either LLM output evaluators or rather linguistic prompt designers. And this is a new type of work, which is going to become more and more important, and it will take more and more of their time, right? The work with LLM. And I believe it is a work of a different nature.
But Marina, when I started 40 years ago, literally 1983, I was doing handwritten translations. I went to a typewriter. I went to a computer. I had dictionaries. I had 3,000 dictionaries in my library. And I don't miss it.
No, nobody misses it.
No love for the way I used to work. I am jealous. I'm jealous of my kids going to school today with all these devices and being able to learn and access information immediately. So I have a sense, and we're not going into the details of the technology here, but it's more a general sense of feeling that, as in other incremental changes that we have had in the business, there is a certain romanticism, a certain aura of, oh, the way we used to do it was better, or the new generation doesn't understand how important it is. I remember a translator telling me that he didn't want to work on a computer because he had his words a central relationship with the keys on his keyboard, right? He liked the touch of his keyboard and so on, and that a mechanical keyboard was much better than a computer keyboard. So there is a certain element of, oh my God, this is going to change so much, but isn't this going to be better, that you don't need to waste time on tasks that are annoying? Copying, pasting becomes different. But in a way, I don't have that romantic sense of things.
Well, I do think, in my opinion, it's for the better, because now it's much more fun. So where is empty post-editing? So let's start with translators, right? Translators, that's a creative process. You translate from, the 40 years ago, you translate from scratch. You need to be an author when you're a translator. Then it morphed into spot the error. You become a reviewer. You need to look at the empty output and very quickly identify the mistake there and correct it. This is not that creative anymore, right? It's not like author your own translation. It's like spot the error. And now we are moving to a different level. Now it is not only spot the error in the LLM output, but figure out the reason behind that error and go back to your prompt and modify the prompt in a clever way so that this error doesn't appear again, which is certainly much more fun than just spotting the error. You need to figure out the reason behind the error. That's where the magic lies for me. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
But this is today, Marina. This is today. Today, we need to spot the error. 5 years from now, it's going to change again. So Kostya, you are less of a linguist and more of a pragmatist. What do you think these implications are?
I wonder if it's not a trick question. I'm less of a linguist. So somehow oh my God, why did I study in the university for 5 years? I think we are straying from the conversation of what happened and what's the implication of the new stuff into the old conversation of resistant change. And
bring it back.
Let's bring it back, right? So Laszlo says nothing's going to happen, right? If I understand your...
No, I didn't say that. What I said
what is your position that you argue that nothing is changing?
No, what I said was there are specific use cases where we couldn't use tools before, right? Would that be large-scale TM cleanups or doing localization testing on images in an automated fashion? These are amazing use cases, and I fully support them. That the industry kind of develops them. I do have the slight concern that Marina mentioned previously to say, no, how about the quality, and not language quality or linguistic quality, but quality of the work? If somebody tells you, develops a tool and says, oh, it's 87% correct. Okay, which 13% is it, right? Or can you at least tell which 13% isn't, so that you know which one to look at, and which is kind of the machine translation quality estimation is exactly doing this. Can you filter out the stuff that doesn't need human touch? I think that's the biggest value of large language models and AI in general. And the thing where large language models come into the picture is they do this on the language content, which we in the localization industry, we deal with day to day. There are plenty of use cases where new things can be done. And there are plenty of cases where...
So you are arguing that new use cases appear. But let's also look at how more easily available and more easily controllable models are democratizing the access to AI. Take Unbubble, a breakthrough company which raised lots of money and has spent millions of dollars on developing a large language model for LQA, for understanding where the error is in the text, so that they narrow down this 13%, Laszlo, that you're speaking about, to maybe 1 or 2%. And as you know, the humans are not infallible. They still have several percent. Even the best experts make errors. Errare... How's it going, Renato? Errare humanum est, right?
Yes.
It's the human nature to make errors. So if you really narrow it down to 2%, then you've achieved human parity, or maybe even better. And
well, according to Translated, it's actually 8%, right? The first pass of human translation has, in average, 8% error. So the first pass of human translation is 92% quality. Let's put it this way.
All right. So if you bring the model there and it achieves this accuracy, you have a fully automated process, and it's a big change because you don't need humans anymore. It's instantaneous. It becomes embedded, and so on. And Babel spent years developing this, and now Marina says that every LSP can make a custom GPT and achieve a similar result, perhaps not as nuanced and detailed, but workable result within how long? An hour, 2 hours a day, 2 weeks, a month. So the impact is there, right? You don't need to be on Babel to build a working solution anymore. And our experience has been that a minimal viable solution is really easy to build. You pick a prompt, you build it within minutes. But something which really works takes so much time. Recently, we had a project which lasts already half a year to make GPT-4 translations work in a specific environment. And to get the last mile, it really takes a long time because...
As in everything, right?
Yeah, it's unreliable, it can time out, and there's frustration because it's almost there, but no. When you push the million words through this, problems are surfacing. So in a similar way, we now all have the access to the tools that made the previous wave of disruptive companies disruptive. Everyone can be an AI disruptor, so that's not differentiating quality anymore. I don't know, Renato, where the discussion will go, because nobody can claim the spot of an AI company anymore. We all can do this. It will all we will all take a month to build something practical, but the impact is always at the fingertips, right? Some companies like TransPerfect already see results. They have the translation costs, right? After machine translation, they have automated post-editing, which again costs the cost into. It's a big impact, especially if you take $1 billion such as TransPerfect in revenue.
Especially, you need to qualify that, because this is not something that they see across the board. This is something that they see in a fraction of their business, which is a fraction of the industry, which is a fraction of all the stuff that has to be done. So I'm glad that you took TransPerfect's case, because TransPerfect's case is specifically in their media business, which is probably maybe less than 10% of their business. And if you take translations of TransPerfect, there's so many.
You're old, Renato. You're old.
I'm old.
You've lived through many iterations and name changes.
TransPerfect, if you take TransPerfect as a whole, as a percentage of the whole industry, right? We are talking about 1.5%, or even less than 1.5% of the whole translation industry is managed by TransPerfect. So 10% of 1.5%, it's a very, very, very small impact overall. So one of the questions that I have, and Laszlo, I will let you comment on this. One of the questions that I have is this really, and this is the discussion, is it really disruptive or is just incremental, is the impact that this thing has. One of the things that caught my attention in the dev day at OpenAI was the fact that they were announcing with a lot of emphasis the fact that they had 100 million users of the technology. And if you look at it as a number, 100 million is a lot, right? But of this 100 million, there are the 5 of us here in this screen. And we don't use it a lot. We don't use it. Kostya certainly uses us more than me and Laszlo, and I don't know how much Marina uses it. But the fact is that 100 million, it's very small in the grand scheme of things. So this is where, when I try to bring this to a market scale and a human scale, I am in a way optimistic, because it still can be a differentiator for those who are using it. And on the other side of it, I don't understand why there is so much fear and so much scaremongering going on in the industry. I think that the impact overall, and this is the theme of our conversation, what is the impact of it, is going to be marginal.
No, there is a big impact, Renato, in the executives who are exercising pressure now to apply AI, right? Yep. It was not something which happened before, but once these large language models became a chatbot that everyone can understand, once it went viral, there's the big impact on 1% of the world that control 90% of the world's money. And this is where the hurt comes from.
What hurt? I mean, why so negative?
I'm just going to interject here really quickly. I have some comments that I'm going to read eventually. So call to action for the over 100 people watching this live. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, then go ahead and leave those in chats, and then I'll interrupt at some point if I can get a word in. All right, Marina.
No, Laszlo was before me. Yeah. If I take the word, I will
Ladies
just
first,
leave it.
please. Go
So,
ahead.
yeah. Okay. So, first of all, no hurt, in my opinion. I think this is a lovely technology and we should just embrace it and be happy that we have it because it's a fascinating thing. We have an amazing language generator at our fingertips, right? At play to ready to be used. But going back to what Renato was saying, Renato, it was you who said that LLMs are not disruptive, they are intrusive. And I think that's exactly what they are. They are not going to disrupt the industry, they will just permeate it, intrude into it, and they will become our daily bread. This is what all our processes will be in some way or another connected with LLMs, leveraging from their capabilities. But that doesn't mean that they will go away. They will be just faster, probably cheaper. That's not always clear, but let's assume they're going to be cheaper, and they will be scalable. They will just manage 10 times more content, 100 times more content within the same time frame. So to me, that is the impact. It's basically an acceleration of what we are doing, bringing it to the next level, but not really changing what we do, and in no way endangering the business that we have.
In some sense, I agree with that sentiment, Marina. And I want to reply to Kostya, who said, yeah, so there are a lot of things happening. And, if it's 1% of companies own 90% of the money, then their impact is huge. Yes, that is true on the global market. Absolutely. Yeah. Renato, what you said, that, TransPerfect with 10% of 1.5% or whatever it is, that's very small impact so far. Yes. Right. The big question that comes is, if the technology-enabled LSPs do actually implement a 30 or 50% efficiency in their costs for production of, say, the most common localization content, will that enable them to actually harvest more of the market, to grow faster than the market, right? To take over the pie from, the small and mid-sized LSP. How quickly will this spread down to the kind of the lower ranks? And how will it, if it does it endanger the smaller and medium-sized LSPs who have no ability to catch up immediately? Because it seems that this technology is proliferating at least somewhat faster than machine translation did 6 to 7 years ago. Yeah, in that sense, Kostya, you're right. That democratization is a big piece of it. It's easier to implement Gen AI than it is to implement machine translation on your end. By now, it's also easy to do machine translation too, but bear in mind, we still at Nimdzi do a lot of MT assessment and implementation projects for our LSPs and for our buyer clients as well. We imagine that in the next few years, we're going to have our hands full similarly with Gen AI implementation, right? And it's, OpenAI, going back to the original topic, OpenAI is platformizing itself, right? They are trying to become the single platform, the go-to platform for generative AI. But then again, there are so many other solutions out there. Let's not forget, would that be, Amazon coming with their Olympus model? Would that be Anthropic getting investments from both Amazon and Google? And of course, Microsoft is hosting OpenAI, and there's everything on Hugging Face. And then next to it, there's the big question of, why is this one model for all, right? Why aren't there yet, or maybe there will be, smaller custom-made models, which are really fast and cheap to run for specific tasks? How easy or hard they will be to develop, customize, and deploy. And they're probably coming. Even, there's a Finnish initiative, there's a Dutch initiative, there's a German initiative with serious investments going into developing language models that would be specifically tailored for a language or for a culture or for a region, a locale. Will these be the way of moving forward? Or really it is, GPT-5 will come along and really will just take over the world because it will be the best model available for every single task? My hunch is no, it isn't. Just like with machine translation, we have an engine for every use case, essentially, right now. No wonder that so far, even though it's possible to create multilingual machine translation engines, they are not really the ones that are in use, right? And it will be something, in my estimation, it will be something similar with generative AI. There will be a large language model, an AI model for a specific use case. Would that be for LQA? There will be a separate one for visual question answering. There will be a third one for linguistic testing, et cetera, et cetera. Who will develop those? Who will be testing those when there are no defined frameworks for quality assessment of these models just yet? It will take probably years to get those done. we need to move forward to that, and we in the industry, we're the ones who are going to be driving that change too.
So, Laszlo, I like what you're saying, because what you're describing is the way I like to look at this change, right? I'm not looking at the change from, and Kostya has done an amazing job at looking at the actual technology and playing with the actual technology. And my playing with the technology has been very frustrating. I learned that ChatGPT can't count, that ChatGPT is really bad at math. And I trained a little GPT to answer questions specific based on some data information that I added, and it was very underwhelming. And it was 3 days after it came out. What is that?
It was, Renato. If you compare it today with your results from before, you might see a different outcome.
From 3 days ago, no, in the new model, right? So yes, maybe I'll see different things, and that's the point. It's an early
No, over the last 3 days, nothing has changed.
Exactly. So what I want to say is that what you have just described, Laszlo, is a little bit of the same reality that we have today with new tools, new technologies. So between you and Kostya, you named 5 LLMs, basically 5 LLMs, right? There, which one are you going to choose? Which one? ChatGPT with GPT-4 Turbo, with all the new features, is the best today. The day after tomorrow, Anthropic, who hasn't been quiet, waiting for GPT to come, waiting for OpenAI to come up with something, is going to say, hey, look at us. We have this same features and better. And then you look at Translated, the Italian guys who are developing their own LLMs, and it's already working in 200 languages better than the other ones. And why? We don't know about it. Yeah. And there is going to be a lot of balls in the air. And we are in the same situation that we are now, which is essentially the paradox of choice, the need to have choice and analysis paralysis. Hey, you know what? This is so complex. It's changing so much. I'll keep doing things the way that I've been doing for the last 5 years because it's safe. Marina, I have a sense that you want to say something.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm waiting for an opportunity. The opportunity is not coming, so I'm just going to bite the bullet and dive in here because I want to get to some of the chats, and then I'll turn it back over to Marina. Thanks everybody who's been submitting in chat. I just want to go through it. Sebastian, Elisa, Waleed, Estella, Kim, Antonios, right. English relies on post-editors instead of translators now, but in Arabic, AI translation quality is still lacking compared to English, emphasizing the ongoing need for human translation. It's a really good point, adding context to the conversation we've been having here. LinkedIn user, hi all, there is an interesting book, Blood in the Machine. Thesis, not the technology is the problem, but the fact that it will be used to reduce as a cost reduction tool. Cost reduction tool in a B2B scenario, pressing for a good enough solution. I wish I could see who that was.
Agree with.
There was a question down here. I like this. Sebastian says maybe clients will create their own models for LQA. Then they can create it the way they want it. Seems the way to go for me. I think a lot of the conversation we've been having is around, which is the best model, but with the barrier to entry for people to develop their own custom models, maybe that's going to be the solution here. We were kind of talking about that. I'm trying to get through a lot of these. What about, Elisa says, what about HeyGen? How will this impact the industry? I don't know what HeyGen is. Does anyone know what HeyGen is? Please,
I'm sure
us, Rabbi. What is HeyGen?
There's a lot to unwrap there. To speak to Arabic, there are actually pretty decent Arabic-specific MT engines out there, and also the UAE has developed their own Falcon family models, which are focusing on Arabic, or at least the Arabic world, North Africa and Middle East. The Falcon large language model. So there are these attempts to make the new AI technology regional or local and serve the needs best there. HeyGen, by the way, is a very interesting one. I really love what those guys are doing with AI translation. But in my head, kind of, that's not very different from the AI interpreting headsets. Yeah, sure, they work, but they will not work for business mission critical contents, for user engagement, for revenue generation. They're kind of fun tools in many ways.
Can I use it to ask a girl out in another language?
Yes, you can.
That's kind of the use case, right?
It's fantastic.
It's very conversational type stuff.
You can do a lot more than that, but also let's realize these take a long time. Like the AI pin from Humane is coming out soon, and it's supposed to use OpenAI's GPT models for live voice clone interpretation even. You can use it for that if you want to. But the delay is a few seconds. It will kind of feel awkward. And if it comes out wrong, you can't really connect it, right? That's one of the things. Whereas our industry is all about, by now, machines come up with the first iteration and we humans correct it. The next generation will be the humans come out with the first iteration, which will be good enough for publishing for the vast majority of the content. And the humans will be there to gauge, to correct, to guide the machines, to provide the content as often as possible right first time.
Going back,
Go back to Marina.
Well, one second. I just want to make sure we cover everybody here because they take the time to write the comments, so I'm going to read them.
You don't need to.
Yvonne, hey,
we want to fight here.
My podcast. My podcast. All right, you want to fight? Let's fight. We're reading the comments. I've got the buttons. You don't. Button for chat. Veronica, your colleague, Marina, says AI models seem to have done one thing, though. Translation became a kind of side effect of using AI for solving various problems. It simply reacts in the requested language, and it will probably gradually learn to react even better the more we keep using it. What if that level of linguistic capability simply becomes good enough for most of the customers? And that is a whole can of worms. Maybe we can talk about, like, what is good enough.
But it already is good enough.
Yeah, like I said, can of worms, right? And yeah. Stefan writes, what makes this different is the democratization of AI through custom GPTs announced last week. Everyone will be able to make their own solutions without knowledge of any code.
And this is dangerous. This is dangerous that anybody can make their own stuff. How much bad stuff is going to be? We make an assumption that things are good, but they can come out bad.
Well,
that's so like many stories of bad outcomes.
That's Apple App Store when they came out. The vast majority of stuff that was published there was junk.
That's why we need to regulate. This is what I started with, right? That's why we need to regulate and have some control, which actually brings me to, I think it was Sebastian who made that comment about clients making their own AI-powered LQA solutions, right? That's fine, as long as they share it with the supplier so that the supplier can run exactly the same prompt on when they evaluate or like self-certify their own quality and have a discussion about it. Is it good? Does it produce the right results, right? Does it evaluate correctly? So
that is what you do, right? You create custom solutions for your clients with MT. Are you moving to do it with AI?
Of course we are, but I don't want to talk right now about what RWS is doing in that space. I want to get back to what you said, Renato, because I promised Tucker to come up with an exotic scientific fact, and I'll do it now. Right?
Thank you. You know what I like to hear.
I know. So there you go. When you complained about the LLM, the GPT math capabilities, that is something I was actually thinking about this morning as I was biking. This is my thinking time. It struck me as very strange that LLMs are so good at generating language and so bad at basic math problems. You need a whole slew of prompting techniques, chain of thought, I don't know what, to make them calculate a simple, John has 2 apples and Mary has 2 apples. How many apples do they have in common? And the reason why it is so surprising, and here comes the exotic scientific fact, okay? The reason it is surprising is because the evolutionary change that Homo sapiens underwent gave us math and language at the same time. The theory is that there was a kind of think of it as genetic mutation, which enabled our brains to perform an operation called merge. Some people talk about recursion, the ability to merge recursively. And it was this cognitive operation that gave us math and language as a byproduct of math. So we have math and language, and the two work according to the same principle of merge and recursion. That's why it is so surprising that an LLM that has language doesn't have math. And the reason for that is because an LLM generates language not by using the deeply structural processes of merge and recursion as we humans do, but it is using a flat process of stringing items one next to the other based on their probability. It's basically putting beads on a string. And LLMs will remain as long as they work the way they work, and I don't see how that's going to change. They just work differently when it comes to language production, language generation. They think differently about languages. So as long as there's the facts, I think we human linguists are safe. We are going to be needed in that industry simply because you need the human skill of understanding language the way humans understand language. And that's how I'm going to end my part.
Kostya,
We are
you've been
coming back
quiet.
again to, no, I would say we're circling back around the question whether GPT works or whether GPT doesn't, and we're not covering in detail what actually happened and what we should do about it. Maybe Renato, you can steer us back onto that topic.
You just tell us. You just steered us back to the topic.
What do you think? So you have 3 stakeholders in our industry, right? The buy-side manager who is under pressure to adopt GPT. How? You have the LSP that is under pressure to transform as usual and grow and optimize. How? And you have the linguist who wants to have job longevity and job success. How? So,
and then you have the technology company that is trying to automate some of this and make some money out of this process too.
Yeah, the technology company is really now squeezed by OpenAI.
Yeah.
Very few niches of technology companies were untouched by the latest release. It can now see, it can now speak. So it's threatening all these companies that have been working on synthetic dubbing, speech recognition, vision, you name it. They've been working on specific problems. Now everyone can do that. But let's.
So here's what it's my take from what I have observed in the last, since September. So two and a half months, we've been going around. It's conference season. All of us have been going to conferences, participating in discussions, listening to panels, looking at demos and looking at presentations and sharing ideas. So what I have seen is that nobody really controls the process. There is this pressure from the top in buyer organizations. Let's look at the 3 players, right? There is this pressure from the top, and I think Wayne Borland from Dell was the one who put it best with a cartoon where he says, what is the impact of generative AI? I don't know. What is how does it change things that I don't know? The answer for everything is I don't know until at the end. So what are you going to do about it? We're going to deploy it everywhere in our organization. Basically, there is a desire, a wish, an impression that LLMs and generative AI are disruptive, revolutionary, and they can solve all the problems. But when we go back to the day-to-day practical things, and I was just at a conference in India, an Adobe vendor summit, where several of their vendors, not only in language technology, but in other areas, were presenting their accomplishments. And to be honest, they're all tests. I think that there was one real case of an actual deployment of AI-enabled processes in an organization, right? So most of them are running pilots, are running attempts, are running ideas, and they need to be delivering their localizations.
Renato, you're again reiterating the point. It doesn't work, so relax.
No, it's not the point that it doesn't work. The point that I want to make is that where we are with this is that the impact of these things is potentially very high, potentially very good, potentially very disruptive, but it requires effort, talent, commitment that nobody's ready to do. We only hear we want it to be cheaper, we want it to be faster, we want to use it. And what do you think is going to change, Kostya? You are the one who have looked at this and has played with it automatically. Have you been able to monetize this?
So to answer the last question, 60% of the MT that flows through my application is now through OpenAI.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I see big impact on how people use machine translation. However, it doesn't answer the question is what people should do.
Mm-hmm. What do you think they should do?
Well, make it work, right? The same idea, right? The out of the box, it's a test. Making it work is a journey, and continue proactively learning and improving it. I think is the right path to be active in that space.
Marina, you're nodding.
I totally agree. I think we should embrace new technologies, be brave, explore, and just take this as an adventure and go for it.
But Marina, am I saying anything different than that?
No,
Okay.
but what you're saying is that until that point, nobody has deployed it large scale in production, for example. It's
Yes.
all tests and pilots and so on. Right, but that doesn't mean that this is going to be like that in a year from now. We're exploring, testing, researching, experimenting, and that is going
How
to
is this
end.
disruptive if we're doing exactly the same thing that we have been doing with NeuroMT until
But I think we agreed that this is not
18 months
disruptive.
ago? Okay.
I think we agreed, at least my understanding is that this is not going to change radically the way we work. This is just another tool that we are having that we can use smartly. And that's it. It's not going to eradicate the entire language industry simply because we have large language models now. I don't believe so.
I violently agree with you. And
Smart man.
Laszlo, what do you want to say?
I would love to add that agreeing with Kostya that there's a lot of experimentation and testing goes into it, and playing with these tools is a great idea. Go ahead, everybody do it and sign up for GPT, go to Hugging Face, do it on Vertex AI or Bedrock, wherever you do it. One of the major challenges that I see is that most of these experiences are really hard to replicate. Many of these tests are not repeatable directly. Sure, you can do the temperature tuning or whatever you do in your API for your models. But as soon as OpenAI, for example, changes or tweaks their models under the hood a little bit, your prompts will not be optimal anymore. Right? And this is one of the major problems that currently these models have. It's great that there are prompts that you can use your natural language to guide the model what to do. But they're not the structured way that we typically use computers right now, which is if you enter code, the code will run and it will always run the same way. And because, these players who develop these foundational models, they are in control of them, it hasn't yet boiled down if this will be a stable way of using these models, prompting and prompt engineering. Will that also be automated? Very much possible in the future. And the additional tools, whatever it is, LangChains and vector databases, will that also be just OpenAI stack that will be used? Will they be the go-to platform?
That was the premise of the last release, right? That was the challenge thrown.
Definitely the move towards that space, yes. But it doesn't mean that there are no alternatives. Actually, there are way too many of them in many ways, agreeing with Renato.
Laszlo, remember smartphones? There were so many smartphones before iPhone.
Yeah.
And then there was only iPhone and everything else.
But let's bear in mind that those are consumer products, primarily. These are primarily consumer products. Say it again?
And ChatGPT is a consumer product.
Yes, but when we use it in our industry, those are business products, right? No wonder there are also not just one cloud solution providers out there, but there are multiple and many of them, actually. Similarly, very likely there will be more than a handful platforms that will.
iPhone is also a
driving your
business product if a business buys it, right?
Guys, I'm going to keep turning this music volume up and up and up until we get the hint here that we're
Oh,
out,
is there music? I can hear it. I'm deaf.
Camera.
that we are out of time for today. Quick, everybody, closing thoughts in 20 seconds or less. Renato.
I'm very optimistic. I think that this technology is great. I think that we're going to make great things. And even though we're going through a slump in this industry because of fear and inaction, I think that there are indicators that things are going to change for the best.
Awesome. Thank you, Renato. Kostya.
Learn prompting. I trained 350 people this year in prompting. Probably going to come up to 500 by the end of the year, and still learning a lot. Number one. And number two, do have 2 or 3 projects in the next year where you implement Gen AI. It doesn't matter what specifically you do. It matters that you go through the journey. Once you walk it once or twice, the third time's the charm.
Love it. Marina.
Cannot agree more with Renato and Kostya. Don't know what to add. I'll just say that fear and inaction, I don't register that, at least not in my immediate environment. On the contrary, there is enthusiasm and this feeling of going on an adventure and exploring. So embrace that, right? And upgrade your skills, definitely. As a linguist, I want to turn to linguist, stop being a philologist, become a linguist and a prompt engineer.
Well put. Thank you. Last but not least, Laszlo.
Ooh, I got last words. I think that large language models are great in natural language generation. It's revolutionary, no doubt. In natural language processing, typically the work we do, it's very augmentative at this point of time, may be revolutionary in the future. And then, yeah, they don't do math well because they're not very good at understanding and reasoning in the first place. That's not what they were created for. But what we keep forgetting is, yeah, maybe the top of the hype is behind us already, but still the level of hype supersedes fit for purpose. And I'm looking forward to the time when there will be fit for purpose models for specific use cases, languages, locales, and we get to the place where everybody feels safe and to invest into these tools without risking ROI because something new comes along in the next month. By the way, may never happen. I mean, safety with ROI.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been a fascinating conversation. I am going to take us out here. Ladies, gentlemen, and chat, we are out of time for today. If you enjoyed this episode of Nimdzi Live, then join us next time tomorrow, when I'll be having a fascinating conversation about something with somebody. I haven't checked my notes, I'm sorry. I appreciate our guests today, Marina and Kostya. I appreciate my guest hosts, Renato and Laszlo. And finally, we all appreciate you, the audience, who are joining us live today. All of the dialogue in chat, everybody who left comments, questions, and especially criticisms. And I look forward to next time. Cheers.